Right. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about object-oriented programming, and actually we started this topic on yesterday, and we got to know the basic concepts about object-oriented programming. And basically in object-oriented programming, what you have is you have classes and objects, right? So classes and objects, so that's the main idea you have in object-oriented programming, classes and objects. So basically now when you take a class a class can uh, uh, class can contain two main things. So can you remember what are the things that a class can hold or class can consist of? Yes, class එකක් ඇතුලේ මොනවද තියෙන්න පුළුවන්? අපි දැන් කතා කළා මේවා ඊයේ.
Data members and data functions.
Yes, good. Exactly. So that's what you have inside the class. So the data members and the member functions. Yes, exactly, good. So that's what you have now. Right. So these are the things. Now here you can see the class student. So the class basically contains, right? This contains data members and member functions, right? Member functions. The thing is now constructor, you know something called constructor as well. So a constructor is also a type of class, right? Sorry, not a class, sorry. Type of a member function, right? So we don't exactly say this is a constructor. We can categorize it under member functions, right? So constructors also can be categorized under member functions. And so data members and member functions, right? So that's what we have. Now, the thing is, now when you are going to create a class, right? The class, then the class name, then curly brackets. Thereafter, you have to define the members. Now, members, we have three member types. The private members, public members, and protected members. So we have three main types: private, protected, and public. But we are not going to discuss about the protected type soon, right? So we will discuss about it later. But today, yesterday and today, we will basically discuss about the private and public. So what do you mean by public and what do you mean by private? When you are going to define a set of members private, right? Don't think that, okay, data members are private and member functions are public. No, not like that. You can define the member functions as private. You can define the data members as public as well. But the thing is, usually we are not going to do that. Usually the data members, almost all the times, we are going to declare it as private under private access modifier. And the methods or the member functions will be declared under public. So what happens now when you are going to create an object from this class, so like this, when you are going to create an object from this class like this, now it's like this, you are creating an object, and the thing is now you can access the members like s1 dot name, s1 dot maths. But the thing is, when you are going to declare it under private access modifier, you can't access them inside the main, right? You can't access them inside the main, but the member functions and the constructor could be accessed from the main since they are declared as public, right? So they are declared as public, therefore we can access them from the main. So if you go to the definition, now don't worry about this, the protected. Here you can see a public member is accessible from anywhere outside the class but within the program. So within the program and outside the class, you can access it anywhere a member declared public, right? But when a member declared private, right, it says a private member variable or function cannot be accessed or even viewed from the outside of the class. So that means in the main, so outside of the class, you can't view the private data members, right? Only the class and the friend functions can access the private member. Now we will discuss about what a friend function is. Right? We will discuss what a friend function is later, but not now. But it says once a member declared private, that member cannot be accessed from the outside of the class. That means from the main, you can't access it, right? It could be accessed only from the class and friend function. So don't worry about the friend functions. We will discuss what friend functions is later, right? Okay. So this also explains. Now, don't worry about protected. The protected members, the protected access modifiers will be discussed when there's a specific topic, a particular topic called inheritance in object-oriented programming. So when we go to the inheritance, the topic inheritance, then only we are going to study the protected protected access modifier, right? Protected access modifier. Okay, so yes, now so you can see when a member is public, so same class can access it, derived class and sorry, now don't worry about what is derived class. We will discuss about these things later, and don't worry about what is private, sorry, not private, protected. Don't worry about this protected, and don't worry about the derived classes. So if you declare something public, the same class can access, main can access, outside the class can access. If you declare something private, the same class you can access it. In the same class you can access it, but not in the main. Right? Now, what do you mean by accessing in the same class? Right? So what do you mean by accessing in the same class? So it's like this now. Here you can see here now the cal average is a function of the data member function of the student class, right? Cal average is a cal average is a member function of the student class. So you can see inside the student, inside the cal average, you can access maths, physics, chemistry, right? Inside the cal average, since it's a member of the student class, you can access the data members. Though they are private, you can access them since you are in the function or you are in a member function of the student class. Then cal average කියන්නේ member function එකක් නේ student class එකේ. ඒ student class එකේ කට්ටියන්ට access කරන්න පුළුවන් average maths chemistry කියන private කට්ටියන් access කරන්න පුළුවන් class එක ඇතුලේ. අපි class එක එළියේ access කරන්න බෑ. Right? Understood? Okay. Now yeah, let me get this one, I think. Right. Okay, now there's another important point that you need to keep in your mind. Now we are going to discuss, right. Now the thing is, here, now yesterday what we did was we discussed about the classes and objects, and we created simple examples. Now this is, if you can't, yeah, let me open it in the other editor. Right. Okay. So now here this is called the class definition. Right. So this is called the class definition. Right. So this is where we are going to define the class. Define in the sense we say what are the data members, and we state what are the member functions available as well as the constructors. And this section calls the class definition, right? So two different things. This is called, this is called the class declaration. This is where we are going to declare the class. We are going to declare the class, right? So we state the class name, right? The member functions and the data members and the member functions and the constructors. So we are going to just declare them, right? Like this. So then this is called the class definition. This is where actually we are going to define the member functions. Right? So this is where we are going to define the member functions, right? Member functions. And then you have the main where you are going to do the other things. Right? Understood? Now there's an important thing that you need to remember. Right? So the thing is now, as the standard way, we are not going to do it like this. We are not going to do this like this. අපි මේක මෙහෙම නෙමෙයි කරන්නේ. ඇත්තටම අපි මේක හදද්දි ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් වේ එක තමයි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් ඔරියන්ටඩ් ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමින් වල කෝඩ්ස් කරන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් වේ එක තමයි ක්ලාස් එකක් ඩිෆයින් කරන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් වේ එක තමයි right මොකද්ද අපි ක්ලාස් ඩෙක්ලරේෂන් කියන පාර්ට් එක එහෙම නැත්නම් මෙන්න මෙහෙ ක්ලාස් එක ඩික්ලෙයාර් කරන එක අපි දාන්නේ වෙනම ෆයිල් එකක ඒ වගේම ක්ලාස් ඩෙෆිනිෂන් එකත් අපි දාන්නේ වෙනම ෆයිල් එකක right? तर main එක විතරයි main එකත් වෙනම තියෙන්නේ right? එතකොට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම standard විදිහට object oriented program කරන්නේ මේ විදිහට. අපි ඊයේ කලේ like yesterday what we did was like got the introduction, so we code everything in the same code. But as the standard, we are not going to do it today hereafter. So what you need to do is that you have to define these classes, like the class declaration in a separate file and the class definition in the separate file. So you have to create them in separate files, right? So the same thing, now I will show you how we can create the separate files for the class declaration as well as the class definition, right? And then how we can implement the main code. So let me show you how it's done. So keep that in your mind. We are not going to implement them in the same code like this. No, not like this. So this is just for the introduction, but as the standard way, we have to define these things, two things in two different codes, right? Two different independent, individual codes, right? Okay, so let me get, so in that case, you are going to do it differently. So let me week 9 session 2, right? So now I will show you how this is done, right? Sorry, not the Python one, div C++. So open the div C++, and then now not like the usually what we do is we get a new code, that's all, right? We get a new code and code there, right? But when it comes to object-oriented programming, you are not going to create a new source file. What you do is you get a new project here, project. You have to get a project, right? Not a source file, get a project. And in the project, you have to say, okay, a project name, one, OOP, just give a project name and select the console application. Select the console application and give a project name, and then hit on C++ project and hit on OK. then you have to select the location where your code should be saved. So you can give any location you like. So I will give the location here, right? So in that case, what will happen? You will get this kind of a code, but you are going to only get the main code, right? So the main code will be here, like this. Now don't worry about these things and return 0. Don't worry about that. They are standard things. No need to worry about that. So what we need to do is we have to add our right. So now this is the main code, right? The main code. So now let's see how we can add the others. Now here you know that this is the class declaration, right? The class declaration. So this is said to be the class declaration. So what we are going to do, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to go here. Now class declaration, what you have to do is uh, give me a second. Okay, so get a new file. Now we are going to add the. I told you that these code should be added separately into different files, right? So now I'm going to get the declaration and it should be added to a new source file. Yes. So when you are going to add a new file, so you can go to new and source file. Then it asks that the file that you are going to create is, I mean, do you need to add the file into this project? Yes. So you say yes, right? Okay. So I have added the new code here. So get this code. So here it says class student and everything. So only the class declaration. So the class declaration part, I no need to include these things, only the class declaration, right? Only the class declaration. And what you can do is, or else you can include these things as well. These two should be included. And now, then after copying everything, just save it, right? Control S, save it. Control S or go to file and save. But when you are saving it, make sure that you are going to do these two things, right? So you have to keep this in your mind. You have to do two important things. The first thing, you have to select the file type as header files, H file, header file. So you definitely, for the class declaration file, you are going to change the type to header file. And here the name, definitely you have to do this. Name should be given as the name of the class. This is a must. Right? The name should be the class name. So two things to keep in your mind. First, you have to save the declaration file as a header file. So you have to change the type to H, and then the file name, the second point, the file name should be same as the class name, right? The function the uh, the file name should be same as the class name, right? So two things to be remembered. And when you are going to save it, right, so you can check the working location. So you can see, so that's saved as a header file, right? It is saved as a header file. So main file is there and a header file is there. Okay, right? Now that's how we are going to create the header file. Then you have to get the class definition here, right? This is what you call the class definition. So you have to get the class definition up to here. So this is the class definition, and take this class definition, copy it, right? Copy it and get a new file, new source file, and add it to the project, and include whatever the class definition. And one thing, again, another important thing, you have to include the header file here. Include the header file like this. Include within inverted commas, you have to give it like student.text. So include the header file, right? Include the header file here, right? Include the header file. So we are including the header file. Now make sure that you are going to include the header file of this specific class, right? So you have to include it here, right? So that's it, and that's pretty much everything, I think. Yeah, so that's the modification. And then what you have to do is save it. Now this is a C++ file, this is a CPP file, but again the class name should be changed, the file name should be changed to the class name, right? Right, the file name should be changed to the class name, but as in the header file or the class declaration, you are not going to change it to the header as a header file. You save it as a CPP file, right? So you save it as a CPP file. Student, the name is student, and the CPP C++ source file. Then save it. Done. So now you have created two files: the student file, the header file, and the class definition, the CPP file of the student class, right? The header and the CPP file, right? So we have created two separate files. Now what you can do is you can now, in order to create classes, I mean from the class, in order to create objects like this, you can do it. Student.s1, likewise, you can create objects, right, in the main. But in order to do this, you have to do an important thing, that you have to include all the files here. So how to include all the files? Include student.h. So without this, so if you run this like this, it won't work. Now it says student was not declared in this scope. So what you can do is you can have to include the header file like this. Right. So now it works. So shall we write some sample codes and see? Right, so you can see now it works perfectly. Right, so it works perfectly here, right? So when you are creating a class hereafter, or when you are creating objects, right? When you are creating objects, you have to do it like this, right? You have to do it like this. So Please give me a second. Right. So I hope that you understood what happens here. Right. Now, shall we create another object and see whether it's working or not? Right. So it works perfectly here. Right. So it works perfectly. So you can see now, the thing is here we have three different files, right? Three different files. Now the header file, the first one is the header file, and the header file contains the class declaration, right? The header file contain the class declaration. Then you have the CPP file, right? So CPP file includes the class definition, right? The class definition. Finally, the object creation and accessing member functions and everything is done inside the main function. But the other important things that you have to keep that in your mind when you are going to do the class declaration. It should be saved as H file, and the file name should be the class name, right? Then you have to include that and the namespace std. And the header file, when you are going to create the CPP file, the class definition, you have to include the header file like this. You have to include the header file like this, and that's all. So you have to then define the class. And finally, you have the main function, but in the main function or the main code, before using the class, before creating objects from the class, definitely you have to include the header file of the class, right? The header file of the class. So you have to do this definitely, right?
So,
Yes, Samita.
so मी प्रोजेक्ट पटंग पुढे एक्सप्लेन करणार सर प्रोजेक्ट सेव्ह करून तुला
All right.
हो सर
right. මම හදන්නම් rectangle කියලා එකක් කරා. අපි rectangle එක මම ආයෙ පහු කරලා පෙන්නන්නම් ඔයාලට. අපි මේක close කරමු. right. හරි. අපි අර ඊයේ කරගත්ත rectangle එකෙන් හදමුකෝ එකට අදාළ එක. හරි. ඉස්සලා මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? First you have to get the div C++, right? Like this, and then go to file, and you are not getting a new code today, right? You have to get a project, right? Then you have to give the project name as you like, rectangle class or whatever. This is a project name. You can give any name you like. And then you have to select the console application. We have to select the console application. Then thereafter hit on OK. And thereafter you have to save it somewhere. The thing is now, So let's say this folder. So I'm going to go to this folder and save it anywhere you like. But අනිවාර්යෙන් මෙහෙම දෙයක් තියාගන්න ඔයාලගේ හැම ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක්ම වෙනම ෆෝල්ඩර් එක හදන්න. මොකද දන්නවද? දැන් මෙතන ඔයාලා රෙක්ටැන්ගල් ක්ලාස් එකනේ හදන්නේ. එතකොට දැන් මෙතනම මේකේ තියෙන තැනම ඔය රෙක්ටැන්ගල් ක්ලාස් එක හදුවොත් මේන් එක ෆන්ක්ෂන්ස් දෙකටම එකම මේන් එකක් තමයි යූස් කරන්න වෙන්නේ. මොකද මේන් කියලා එක මේක කෝඩ් එකෙන් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මෙතනම අනිත් එකත් හැදුවොත් එහෙම આવුත්. ඒකින්ද හැම එකක්ම අලුත් ෆෝල්ඩර් එක හදන්න. හැම ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක්ම අලුත් ෆෝල්ඩර් එක හදන්න. Right? So keep that thing in mind to create each project in a separate folder, since like if you use the same folder, the main code will be replaced. Main code එක replace වෙනවා හැම වෙලේම. ඒකින්ද අලුතෙන්ම හදන්න folder එකක් ඇතුලේ හදන්න class එක. I mean the project. Right, so this is it. And then finally then what we are going to do, save it, the main file, save it, then get a new source file. Then you are asked that whether this code needed to be added to the same project. Yes, right? And then what you need to do is get the class definition, right? So the class, the class declaration. Get the class declaration and include it here like this. Class declaration and include it here like this. So then save it. When you are saving it, make sure that you are going to change the type to header files, right? And the class name again should be, the file name should be same as the class name, right? The file name should be same as the class name. So now this will be saved as student.h. Here, student.h. Understood? Okay. So then you have to create the other CPP file again, get a new source file and add it to the current project. Save it. Sorry, before saving it, include the definition. Include the definition, and another important thing that you have to include the header file here like this. So actually you are not going to use like this, right? මෙහෙම නෙමෙයි දාන්නේ. මෙහෙම දාන්නේ නැත්තේ මොකද මේක standard library එකක් නෙමෙයි. So we are only using this greater than equal marks like IO stream for the standard library. So this is a user defined library. So in that case, we will use the double inverted commas. So you have to use the double inverted commas. Later we can convert it to a standard library. Then you can probably use that as the greater than or less than marks. But for now, since this is a user-defined header file, you are going to include it as in double inverted commas, right? So then after doing that, what you have to do is you have to save it as the same as the file name. Rectangle. Same as the class name. So I did a small mistake here now. Actually, this should be saved as rectangle, right? Rectangle. Right, so it should be saved as the rectangle, not student. So I will delete the student header. Right, so yeah, so thereafter what we can do, so the header file done, the CPP file done, right? Then in the main file, in order to create the rectangle objects, you have to first include the rectangle dot h header file, and then rectangle r1 right? Yeah, so that's how it is done, right? Okay, now if you check this one, run it and check, probably yes, you will see the output like this, right? So now that's how you are going to do it. Okay, understood? Right, so any issues, anyone?
Hadi sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so please give me a second. Okay, right. So yeah, so we will discuss more about object-oriented programming and several other things. Uh, right. So let me open the so now when you are going to, like, if you want to open the project, what you have to do is, now this is the object, this is the project that we have created for the student. What you can do is just open this div file, so it will this file, right? So this will open your uh, the project at once, right? So the project will be opened at once. Okay, so now what I need to do, what I'm going to do here, uh, is that I'm going to have right. So the other thing is that when you are creating constructors, right? So these are constructors, you know. Right? So when you are creating constructors, the important thing is that once a constructor is created like this is not the only constructor you can have in the class, right? This is not the only constructor that you can have in the class. So this is called a parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. You call it as a parameterized constructor. Keep that thing in mind. And if you create it like this, now this is called the default constructor, right? Default constructor. Default constructor. So what I mean by default constructor, like it says basically no parameters, right? The thing is you have to have like, it's a good practice, not good practice, but as a standard, right? It's always when you are creating objects, sorry, when we are defining classes, we add the default constructor. Definitely we add the default constructor. That's not a must, but that's a standard, right? We add a default constructor. And the other thing is the same class can contain multiple constructors, right? A single class can contain multiple constructors, as mentioned here. So we have a parameterized constructor and a default constructor. So two constructors are available. So thing is now the default constructor, not a must, but again make a අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කරන්න ඕන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි මතක තියාගන්න අපි ක්ලාස් එකක් හදද්දී අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම default constructor එකක් add කරනවා. ඒක standard එකක්. ඒක කලේ නැත්තම් code එක වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මම කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක කලේ නැත්තම් code එක වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මම කියන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි සමහර යාට වැඩ කරන්නේ නැති වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. සමහර compilers වල වෙන development environment use කරද්දී අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම default constructor එක තියෙන්න ඕනේවත් තියෙනවා. එහෙම ප්‍රශ්න ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඒකින්ද අපි default constructor එකක් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම දානවා. parameterized constructor එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාලට ඒක optional. but parameterized constructor එකක් දාන එක optional. හැබැයි default constructor එකක් දාන එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කරන්න ඕන දෙයක්. right? ඔයාලට ප්‍රශ්නයක් කරද්දී default constructor එකේ parameters නැහැ. default constructor කියලා කියන්නේ parameters නැති වෙලාවට. ඉතින් මේ default constructor එක මොකක්ද අපි කරන්නේ? මොකක්ද මේක ඇතුලේ දාන්නේ? Yes. So the default constructor now, you know that this header file and this is the definition. This is where you are going to do everything. So so in the default constructor, what we normally do is we set all the data members to their initial values. ඒක තමයි සාමාන්‍ය අපි default constructor එකේ කරන්නේ. data members ලව default value එකට assign කරන එක තමයි අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කරන්නේ. right? data members ලව default value එකට assign කරන එක තමයි අපි කරන්නේ. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මම මෙතන පොඩ්ඩක් දාන්නම් මෙහෙම දෙයක්. cout එකක් දාන්නම් අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න. මෙතන මම දානවා default constructor call කියලා. right? default constructor code, right? okay. හරි මම මොකද්ද කළේ? මම add කළා default constructor. දැන් මේ මතක තියාගන්න මේවා මම මේ කොහොමද note එකේ මේවා දාලා නැහැ. default constructor එකක් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම දානවා අපි class එකක. ඒ කියන්නේ class එකක් හදනකොට default constructor එකක් දාන එක අනිවාර්යයි. මම කියන්නේ ඒක දැම්මේ නැහැ කියලා code එක වැඩ කරන්නේ නැත්තේ නෑ. හැබැයි standard එකක් විදිහට අපි දානවා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම default constructor එකක් class එක හදද්දි. ඒ කියන්නේ parameterized constructor එකක් තිබ්බත් නැතත් default constructor එක අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම දානවා. ඒක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක. එතකොට අපි ඩිෆෝල්ට් කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ටර් එක මෙහෙම දැම්මහම ඩිෆෝල්ට් කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ටර් එකේ ඇත්තටම මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? තියෙන data members ලව 0 වලට initialize කරන එක තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි කරන්නේ ඔය default constructor එකේ, right? So if you go here and let me create right, like this. So yeah, so without doing anything, we will run it like this and see. So the first one, we are passing parameters. The second one, we are not passing any parameters. We are just creating the object. Name එක බින්දුව කරන්න බෑ, name එක empty string එකක් තමයි කරන්න ඕනේ, right? You can't make it. Okay, now can you see the difference, right? So when the first object is created, right? When the first object is created, the parameterized constructor called, right? When the second object is created, the default constructor is called. Right? First the parameterized constructor, then the default constructor, right? So when you are going to create it like this, the default constructor will be called. Okay, now if we see now the s1 dot like print details and s1 dot so here also I will print this 2 dot print details. So you can see the name is empty, right? The name is empty and the right, the name is empty and right, so the name is empty. The second one, I'm talking about the second one. All the data members are 0 since what happens when the second object is created? So it calls to the default constructor, right? It calls to the default constructor and it makes all the members to their default values, right? It sets all the data members to their default size, default values, right? So that's what basically that's what happens, right? Right. The other thing is that you can have multiple constructors. Right? You can have right. For example, now let's say this is the parameterized constructor one, and you can create parameterized constructors as this asset. Right. So now what this parameterized constructor does, you can see it accepts only one data member, right? It accepts only one parameter, right? So what we can do is you can define it here. right? So I have added another constructor, and this constructor takes only one parameter, right? You can see it takes only one parameter, and here also we have declared with one parameter. So shall we yeah, so shall we create another object like this? So now when you are creating it, shall we pass only one parameter like this? So what you can see in the summary kind of the thing. So you can see, okay, when the first object is created, it's called to the parameterize, right? It calls the parameterize constructor one. When the second object is created, uh, it calls to the parameterize constructor. I mean, the second one, the default constructor is called. The third one, parameterize constructor two called. Right? Understood? Right? So what I wanted to show is that you can add multiple constructors in the same class, right? Not only one constructor, you can add multiple constructors as you want, as required in the given, in the class, right? When you are defining the class, you can add multiple objects, right? So you can add multiple objects when you are creating the class. Okay. Yeah. So we have three parameterized constructors here, right? And okay, so then I will show you something. Right. Okay, right. So now you know that when a class is declared, right? So when a class is declared, what we can do is we can create objects from that class, right? So here you can see we have already created three objects, right? We have already created three objects. Now what's the important thing about this objects is that it has all the data members, right? That means these like we have what we have S1, S2, and S3, right? So these objects, you know that these objects, right? These objects contain all the data, all the members. That means what? දැන් මේ මං කියන්නේ මේ S1, S2, S3 object තුනටම මෙන්න මේ හැම එකක්ම තියෙනවා. S1 ට වෙනම name එකක් තියෙනවා, S1 ට වෙනම maths තියෙනවා, S1 ට වෙනම physics තියෙනවා, S1 ට වෙනම chemistry තියෙනවා, S2 ටත් ඒ විදිහටම තියෙනවා, S3 ටත් වෙන වෙනම තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ මේ function උත් වෙන වෙනම S1 ට, S2 ට, S3 ට වෙන වෙනම හැදෙනවා. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි දැන් for example uh, okay. So yeah. So now we have the student class and we have created 3 objects here. Right? So we have created 3 objects. So now the thing is that right? You know that S1, S2, and S3, right? So these 3 objects have its own name, its own math, its own physics, its own chemistry, its own average, right? S2 and S3 also has same, right? But the thing is now when it comes to uh, there's another variable type called static variables, right? Static variables. Now what we can do, like I will show you. Give me a second. Yeah, okay. Right now, okay. Yeah, so you can define something like this. So they should be declared as static. Or, yeah, right. So it's like this now. Yeah, let me check. Let me quickly have a run and see whether this is working. Yeah, okay, great. So now I just check a few things. It works. So let me explain what I tried to explain here, right? Okay, great. Now here I have created a special kind of a variable, right? So we know, like, okay, if this is the case, it's fine, right? If this is the case, it's fine for you. I mean, you can understand this is an integer type variable called count. But I have added the keyword called static before the count variable. I have added the keyword called static before the count variable, right? Keyword called static. Now, the thing is, now this static variable is called a class variable. So this is called a static variable, or else this is called a class variable, right? So there's a specialty. Then අනිත් data members ලා ඔක්කොම name, math, physics, chemistry, average මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒවා හැම object එකටම copy ගානේ හැදෙනවා, right? හැම object එකටම copies ගානේ හැදෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ උදාහරණයක් විදියට අපි ගාව තියෙනවා name එකක් තියෙනවා class එකේ, name, maths තියෙනවා, physics තියෙනවා, chemistry තියෙනවා, average තියෙනවා, count තියෙනවා. මම count එක පොඩ්ඩක් highlight කරන්න. right? දැන් මෙහෙමයි. දැන් මේවා ඔක්කොම හැදෙනවා මේ copies කාටද? So these things has like S1 also has a name, it has maths, it has physics, it has chemistry, and it has average, right? So this also name, it has a maths, it has physics, chemistry, and average. So this also has a name, maths, physics, chemistry, and average, right? So it also has something like this. Okay, understood. Now the thing here, the important point here is that the count variable, since this is a static, right? This is a static variable. This is called a static count, right? So since this is a static variable, the count will not be created as copies to each object. Count කියන variable එක අර වගේ හැම එකකටම copies විදිහට හැදෙන්නේ නැහැ. තේරෙනවද? static කියා දැම්මොත් එහෙම ඒක හැදෙන්නේ class එකටම එකයි. right? Class එකටම එකයි, right? For example, now let's say that you have a housing scheme, right? So you have a housing scheme, and in that housing scheme that you have rooms and I mean, if you take a blueprint, right? So if you take the blueprint, so in the blueprint you have if you have blueprint, you have like the rooms, bathrooms, and everything will be there. But like, let's say, okay, when you are going to create the objects, that means houses from that class, all those rooms and everything will be there, but there will be a common swimming pool for the housing scheme, right? අපි හිතමු දැන් swimming pool එකයි තියෙන සම්පූර්ණ housing scheme එකට. මම ඒ වගේ එකක් තමයි static variable එකක් කියන්නේ. අර කාමර, bathroom හැම එකම තියෙනවා හැම object එකටම, හැමෝටම එක ගානේ තියෙනවා. හැබැයි count කියන එක මුළු class එකටම එකයි තියෙන්නේ, right? එයාගෙන් copy හැදෙන්නේ නැහැ හැමෝටම, right? So copies won't be created for each and every count. I mean, each and every object. Only one count will be there. So that count will be common for the class, right? That count is common for the whole class, and that count, that this variable, the static variable, is common for all the objects, and all the object has only one common count, but not like other data members, they have their own copies. But when it comes to a static variable, the class will have only one. So that means objects also have the common static variable, right? What's the usage of this static variable? You can use it for this kind of application, right? So now, okay, now I will do something like this. Right? I will do something like this. Okay, so I will not declare it like in count, right? I will declare it like count, right? I will declare it like count. No. First, we will do it like this. Static in count, right? Static in count. Okay. So then at the main, in the main, I will declare the static variable like this. Int student count, I'm going to make it to 0, right? I'm going to make the count variable to 0 first, right? So then here we have a count variable, a static variable, a count variable. And what I'm going to do here in the CPP file, in all the constructors, I'm increasing the count by 1. In all the constructors, I'm going to increase the count by 1. That means when the constructor is called, the count should be increased by 1. So that's what I'm doing here. And the other thing is that I print the count in the print details function. Right? හරි. වැඩි හිතන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. මොකද්ද මම කියපු දේවල් ටික ආපහු මතක් කරගමුකෝ. මම කිව්වා මෙහෙම දෙයක්. static variable කියලා කියනවා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් හදන variable වලට ඉස්සරහින් static කියලා දාපුවාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒක static variable එකක් වෙනවා. right? static variable එකක් වුණාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? අනිත් data members ලා වගේ නෙමෙයි. අනිත් data members ලා වගේ නෙමෙයි. static variables එකයි තියෙන්නේ මුළු class එකටම. right? So there will be only one static variable for the whole class. Right? That means each object won't have a copy of the count variable, right? Each object won't have a copy of the count variable. The count variable, there will be a common, count variable will be a common variable for the whole class. That means all the objects have only one count variable. It like the මෙතන පේන count කියන එක objects වලට යන්නේ class එකටම එකයි තියෙන්නේ. Right? So that kind of a variable is created. So then what I did, I initialize it to 0 in the main. Then in the CPP file, what I did was I'm trying to increase the count at each constructor. I'm increasing the count of the, I'm increasing the value of the count in each constructor. So then print details function also modified to print the count, right? Okay, now can someone give me, can someone predict or can someone guess what will be the value of the count when this code is run, right? When this code is executed, what would be the values of the count? Anyone? මොකද අපි print details එකෙත් count එක print කරලා තියෙනවා. හැම පාරම print details එකේ count එක අපි print කරලා තියෙනවා. Yes? Quickly.
count එක 0 කියලා පෙන්නනවා.
count එක 0 කියලා පෙන්නනවා. හරි. අනිත් අය මොකද හිතන්නේ?
කවුන්ට් එකේ 0 කියලා වෙනවා සර්.
මොකද්ද කවුන්ට් එක?
0 බිංදුව කියලා වෙනවා.
හරි කවුන්ට් එක බිංදුව කියලා පෙන්නනවා. තව කවුරු හරි හිතනවද මොනවා හරි ආන්සර් එකක්?
කවුන්ට් එක එකයි කියලා වෙන
මොකද්ද කවුන්ට් එක?
එකයි කියලා
එකයි කියලා පෙන්නනවා. හරි. බලමු. කවුරුත් කිව්වේ නැහැ හරියට ආන්සර් එක. පළවෙනි පාර කෝල් කරද්දි කවුන්ට් එක 1යි, දෙවෙනි පාර කෝල් කරද්දි කවුන්ට් එක 2යි, තුන්වෙනි පාර කෝල් කරද්දි කවුන්ට් එක 3යි. තුන්වෙනි පාර කෝල් කරද්දි නෙමෙයි. පළවෙනි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක හදද්දි කවුන්ට් එක 1යි, දෙවෙනි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක හදද්දි කවුන්ට් එක 2යි, තුන්වෙනි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක හදුවාම කවුන්ට් එක 3යි. ඔයාලා කියන එක හරි. මෙන්න මේ වෙලාවට. මෙන්න මෙහෙම තිබ්බනම් ඔයාලා කියන එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම හරි. මම මේක අයින් කරන්නම්. මම මෙන්න මේ මොඩිෆිකේෂන් එක කරන්න. මේක ස්ටැටික් නැතුව int count කියලා තිබ්බනම් ඔන්න හරි. ඔයාලා මෙන්න මෙහෙම කිව්වනම් හරි. මෙහෙම තියෙද්දි මෙන්න මෙහෙම count 0 කියලා දාලා නිකන් ස්ටැටික් නෑ int count විතරයි. කියලා දැන් රන් කරොත් එහෙම මෙන්න මෙහෙම තිබ්බහම නම් කවුන්ට් එක 1යි කියන කතාව හරි. මොකද දන්නවද දැන් මෙහෙම තිබ්බහම මේක right. So this count is a data member, right? Here this count is a data member. That means all the objects have a count. හැම object එකකටම count කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. මෙහෙම තිබ්බොත් එහෙනම් මොකද මේක data member එකක් වෙනවා. එතකොට අපි මොකද කරන්නේ count එක එකකින් වැඩි කරලා print කරනවා හැම පාරම. count එක එකකින් වැඩි කරලා print කරනවා. ඒතර count එක 1 කියලා තමයි හැම වෙලෙම පෙන්නන්නේ. හැබැයි මෙහෙම කරපු ගමන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙතනට අපි static කියලා දාපු ගමන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේක objects වලට නෙමෙයි සම්පූර්ණ class එකටම එක variable එකයි common එක variable එකයි තියෙන්නේ. One common variable will be there. Right? So in that case what happens? Right? In that case what happens? is මේ බලන්න දැන් පළවෙනි පාර මොකද වෙන්නේ බලන්නකො count එක 0 එහෙනම් ඔය count එක 0 වෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ count එක තමයි ඔය 0 වෙන්නේ right so this count becomes 0 මෙන්න මේ class එකේ තියෙන common count එක තමයි 0 වෙන්නේ හරි ඊට පස්සේ මොකද අපි කරන්නේ මේ බලන්නකො අපි S1 object එක හදනවා S1 object හදද්දි මෙන්න මේ construct එකට call වෙනවා right ඒ කියන්නේ කොතනද call වෙන්නේ මෙන්න මෙයාට එයාගේ අපි call කරලා values assign කරන අවසානට count එක එකකින් වැඩි කරනවා ඉතින් මොකද වෙන්නේ මේ count එක එකකින් වැඩි වෙනවා දැන් this counts එක වෙනවා දැන් මේ count එක right ඒ count එක දැන් එක වෙනවා right this will become 1 this will become 1 right then what happens right then what happens here we call the s2 object we create the s2 object so what happens in s2 object this one calls and the count will be increased by 1 so we have a common count so now what happens the count becomes right the counts become 2 so then what happens finally we create the s3 the third object and what happens here this will be called and here also we increase the count by 1 right we increase the count by 1 so what happens here is that this will become 3 right දැන් මේ මම මට ඔයාලට තේරුම් කරවන්න ඕනේ මේක එච්චර ලොකු ඉම්පෝර්ටන්ට් දෙයක් නෙමෙයි මේක ගොඩක් යාට ප්‍රශ්න වලට එන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි ඉතින් මේක තේරුම් ගන්න එක වටිනවා මොකද මේක ස්ටැටික් කිව්වහම එක වේරියබල් එකයි මුළු ක්ලාස් එකටම හැදෙන්නේ. එතකොට කොමන් එකක් තියෙනවා. හැමෝටම කොපිය ගානේ හැදෙන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට S1 ගෙන් වෙනසක් කරත් ඒක අර කොමන් එකට බලපාන්න S2 ගෙන් වෙනසක් කරත් ඒක කොමන් එකට බලපාන්න S3 ගෙන් වෙනසක් කරත් ඒක කොමන් එකට බලපාන්න. හරියට නිකන් ඔයාලගේ ගෙදර හැමෝටම යූස් කරන්න එක බයික් එකක් තියෙනවා වගේ. right ඔයාලා මොනවා කළත් එකම ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එකට තමයි බලපාන්නේ. ඔයා ගිහිල්ලා ඒ බයික් එක හැප්පුණත් වෙන කවුරු හරි එක්ක ගිහිල්ලා ඒක හැප්පුණත් නිකන් ඔයා කරන එක කවුරු කළත් ඒක ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එකට බලපානවා. right so similarly here also what you need to do is what you need to identify here is that this has right a static once a static variable is created what happens is that it will be only one copy will be there for the whole class right there will be one copy for the whole class right so that's what it's about the static variables right static variables okay so then right so then we have another topic to be discussed the last topic for today friend functions a friend function right so here now friend function is basically these 2 points explain everything so a friend function is a function which is defined outside the class scope but it has the right to access all private and protected members of the class even though the prototypes of the friend function appear in the class definition friends functions are not member functions. අපි කතා කරනවා friend functions කියලා functions type එකක් ගැන. මොකක්ද ඒක කියන්නේ? මේ friend functions කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. හරි. friend function කියලා කියන්නේ member function එකකට නෙමෙයි. Right? It is not a member function. හැබැයි එයා කියනවා a function which is defined outside that class scope but it has the right to access all the private and protected members of the class. Member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි එයාට පුළුවන් ඔක්කොම private and protected members ලව access කරන්න. Right? So it can say, I mean it says that it can access all the private and protected members. තේරෙනවද? ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපි function එකක් අපි define කරනවා member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි member function එකක් නොවුනත් එයාට පුළුවන් අර average ඊළඟට අනම්මනම් ඔය තියෙන දේවල් maths marks, physics marks, chemistry marks අන්න ඒවා access කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? So it can access those things, right? So that's what it says. Okay, so shall we define a friend function and see, right? So here say even though the prototypes of the friend function appear in the class definition, friends are not member functions. Again, අපි අත්තම class member එකේ දානවා අපි මේ අපි friend functions දානවා. හැබැයි ඒක එහෙම දැම්මා කියලා ඒක member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. අපි friend function එකක් define කරන්නේ මෙන්න මෙහෙම. හයි මෙන්න මෙහෙමයි friend function කියලා එකක් දාන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි දානවා friend keyword එක friend. ඊට පස්සේ අපි දාමු අලුතෙන් my print details කියලා my print the new print details. Right? Also you have to define the function name as well. Right? So this is called a friend function. Right? So I have defined a function called new print details. So it's a friend function, right? So what do you mean by a friend function is again a function is defined outside the class scope. මේ class එකේ outside නෙමෙයි මේ class scope කියලා කියන්නේ. class එකේ එකක් නෙමෙයි කියලා එක කියන්නේ. Right? But it has the right to access all the private and protected members of the class. Right? Even though the prototypes for the friend function appear in the class definition, friends are not member functions. මේ කියන්නේ ඒක තමයි. දැන් class definition එකේ ඔයාලට පේනවා you can see in the class definition that you can see the friend function, but the friend function is not a member function. Keep that thing in mind. Friend function කියන්නේ member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? දැන් ඔයාලට කවදාවත් බෑ s1.new print details කියලා call කරන්න. Right? You can't do that. You can't call it like s1.new print details. No, you can't do that. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. මොකද members ලා ඔයාලට පුළුවන් s1.s2.s3. කියලා හැම වෙලේම call කරන්න. හැබැයි friend functions එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. It's a friend function, right? See now what I will do here let me get a student object. Student object. So student object will be passed as the parameter here. And here what I'm going to do. So I will add the function here, void new print details. Right? Now what happens? මම මෙහෙම දාන්නේ නැහැ මේක මේ. මේක තමයි මම function එක define කරන්නේ. But I don't include it like this. Right? මෙහෙම දාන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද මෙහෙම දාන්නේ නැත්තේ මෙහෙම එකක් නෙමෙයි මේක. මෙහෙම දාන්න පුළුවන් function එකක් නෙමෙයි. මේක friend function එකක්. So right, so what I'm going to do now, you can see it's here. It accepts student object. My function is student object at time one. So I'm passing a student object, right? So the student objects is taken like this, and I will print all the details. Right, okay. Okay, so then actually that's it. So now this function is a friend function. It's not a member function. This accepts a student object. And what you can do in the main, you can use it like this. So let me, yeah. Right. So I can use this new print details function like this. See, I can directly pass a object here. I can directly pass a object to this function S1, right? So then what happens, this object will come here, right? And මෙතන අපි S1 කියන object එක pass කරාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? S1 කියන object එක මෙතනට එනවා. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපිට පුළුවන් std.name right? I can print the name, math, physics, chemistry, and average of that object. So shall we run this and see whether it works? Yes. Now you can see this is the new print details function. So it prints everything well. Right? So we can use this function for the other objects as well. So this function is not called like S1 dot, right? S1 dot කියලා එහෙම නෙමෙයි run කරන්නේ. එහෙම run කරන්න බෑ මොකද member function එකක් නෙමෙයි. But the specialty is this can access all the members, right? See, it can access all the members. So what we are doing here, we are passing object S1, S2, and S3. So what happens here? It comes here. The object comes here. S1 comes here, and S1 name, S1 maths, S1 physics, S1 chemistry, S1 average prints. Then S2 and S3 details printed. Right. So we will run it and see. Right. So works like the same as earlier, right? So what's the difference? What's the specialty here is that the function define, like, even though the prototypes of the friend function appear in the class definition, friends are not member functions. So here, now this is where you declared it. This is not a member function, it's a friend function, right? So in the definition also, we don't say that, okay, this is like is void samanya member function and api meheman declare karan. So it's not like, it's not declared like that, right? But what's the specialty about the friend function is that it has the right to access all private and protected data members of a class. Friend function එකක් especially අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් දැන්. මොකද දැන් අනිත් functions වලට බෑ name, math, physics, chemistry access කරන්න. මොකද ඒවා private data members, right? දැන් main එකට එහෙම access කරන්න බෑ. හැබැයි friend function එකකට access කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකයි specialty එක friend functions වල තියෙන. So you can see it has the right to access all the private and protected members of the class, right? So that's the specialty about the friend functions, right? Understood? Got it? Right? Okay, so yeah, so that's pretty much everything about the friend function. Now don't worry about these things. You will get a friend function for your assignment, but not that much important. So again, you have to have a look on these things, right? A very simple thing. So if you can try these questions again, then you will probably get the understanding, right? Okay, so any questions you may have, right? Any questions you may have from the sections that we covered today? Right, so today actually what we did was we first discuss how that we can create a standard object oriented programming code. So we need to create the H file separately, the class declaration, and then the CPP file, that means the class definition, and the main file separately. So we have to create them separately, right? Thereafter we discuss about the static data members, right? So static data members, what do you mean by a static data member is basically, yeah, I will upload all the videos and everything available will be available in the YouTube, right? So static variable, when you are going to discuss about static variable, what's the main important thing there is that that static variable will be created only one for the class, one for the class. So all the object has only access to a common variable, right? Only one copy for the whole class. Not all the object gets different members. No, it will be there only for the class. So there will be only one, right? So that's what you call the static variable. And the friend function simply, so when you are going to create a friend function, this is how you can create a friend function. Friend function is defined inside the class definition, class declaration, but this is not a member function. Friend function එකක් කියන්නේ member function නෑ. මේ class එක ඇතුලේ තිබ්බට මේක member function එකක් නෙමෙයි, right? Right? Not a member function. And the other thing is that what's the usage that you can use, though it's not a member function, it has a special right, it has a special capability. It can access all the private, now maths, name, physics, these are private, but inside this function you can access those things. So what we simply do is we pass the object to the member function and it takes here, and we can access the name, math, physics, chemistry, and everything. So we can use the friend functions for that, right? Okay, so anything to be again, anything you couldn't understood or anything to be discussed again? So any issues you may have in the any issues you may have in the assignment 3, right? Any issue you have in the, yes. Sahan, yes. Oh. Yes. Any issues?
සර් පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ සර් ඉන්පුට් දෙන්න ඕනේ යූසර් ඉන්පුට් විදිහට නැත්නම් අපි කෝඩ් එකේම ඉන්පුට් දෙන්න ඕනද?
බලමු පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න.
ඒක අර මේ සාම්පල් එකක් දාලා තිබ්බා ඒක නම් තිබ්බේ සර් මේ මාක්ස් ටික දීලා වෙනවද?
මෙතන මේ ෆයිල් තුනක් හදනෝනේ අපි මේක දැන් අද කිව්වේ
නෑ මේක කමක් නෑ just ෆන්ක්ෂන් එකේ ඩිෆයින් කරන්න කීබෝඩ් එකෙන් ගන්න ඕනේ නෑ. කීබෝඩ් එකෙන් ගන්න ඕනේ නිකම්ම මෙතන ඩිෆයින්
Okay, sir.
කරලා පෙන්නන්න.
ඕකේ සර්.
මේකෙත් ඔයාලා මේ කීබෝඩ් එකෙන් ගන්න ඕනේ නිකම් මේක ඩිෆයින් කරන්න. කෝඩ් එකේ ඩිෆයින් කරන්න ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. කීබෝඩ් ඉන්පුට්ස් ගන්න ඕනේ නෑ.
ඕකේ සර්.
Hari. Okay. Any other thing? Yes. So next week we are going to move on to a topic called a very important topic called inheritance, right? And then we have a few more topics to be covered, right? So let's see. Okay then. So if you have any questions regarding the assignment, please drop me a message or call me or drop me an email. So I will come back to you, right? Other than that, if you don't have any questions, we can meet. We can conclude the session, and we will meet on next week, Thursday, right? Okay. So then, thank you very much, and we will see. We will see you on next week.
Thank you, sir.